Welcome back, dear viewers. You may notice something unusual and different this week. While last week we had a bar attack handkerchief, this week we have a bottle of sake. and Daphne is back with us this week for the last Anime Nation podcast at Anime Nation. Now, that's not to say that our podcast is going anywhere, because I will tentatively be continuing these. However, our location, the venue for our recording is going to be changing. So you may, next week, possibly get to see not only me, but a little bit of my house, because that's where I'll be recording these from now on. So, as usual, I'm sure you're familiar with the format. We'll start off with the latest news from Japan and work our way over here, and gradually move into whatever happens to be on our minds, or on our notes.
On our sheets.
So we'll start off with the announcement that the Saki Biyori manga series is getting an OAD. If the name sounds familiar, it is a spin-off from Ritsu Kobayashi's Saki Mahjong Bishoujo manga series that's been running for a number of years now and is tremendously popular. Saki Biyori is the super deformed 4-koma spin-off by Saya Kiyoshi. Now, although Saya Kiyoshi's Saki Biyori manga actually has 3 collected volumes so far, the OVA, based on the manga, is not going to appear with any of the Saki Biyori manga. It's actually going to be released in the limited edition of the 14th volume of Ritsu Kobayashi's Saki manga series, the original series, which comes out in Japan on July 25th, 2015. So, if I was the creator of Saki Biyori, I might be a little bit miffed that my manga isn't actually getting the anime adaptation. But then again, better than it's getting an anime adaptation than not. So,
yeah, even though it might not be what he wants.
Yeah, but we know this is all related to money, and I'm sure the publisher wants the original series to sell the best, so that's why that gets the limited edition. So, yeah, so it goes.
So it goes.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to read from this. I'm not as good as he is. Baby Steps' second season has been announced. The recently concluded tennis anime series Baby Steps concluded with its 25th episode, with an announcement that the story will continue into a second season next spring. They love their tennis.
They do, but that's the oddity of this, because the other tennis anime that I'm familiar with, Ace Narai and Tennis no Oji-sama, both went really long. They didn't have short, like 25 episode seasons. So I don't know why this one was planned as only a 2-cour show instead of an ongoing series. Because I guess you could theoretically predict that they weren't sure if it would be successful, but how often are sports anime not successful?
Exactly.
So I was really surprised that this isn't going to be just an ongoing shonen anime. It's being divided up into little seasons. But since I actually watched the whole first season and really enjoyed it quite a bit, I'm glad that it is at least getting more anime.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I can't say I've watched quite as much of Oshiri Kajiri Mushi. I don't know actually any Americans that do. I guess maybe the folks over at Comedy Subs might possibly have watched it, but I suspect they probably just ripped off Crunchyroll subs. So maybe they didn't even watch all of it, and they released all of it. Oshiri Kajiri Mushi is butt-biting bug. You can tell from the title. It's an anime for elementary school kids, very, very young children. It's 5-minute episodes about little white roach-type Smurf-looking bugs that bite people's asses. Yeah, and when you're 5 years old, that kind of thing is just infinitely hilarious.
Okay.
Which explains why it got a 20-episode TV series in 2012, then got a 32-episode TV series in 2013, and now we'll get a 3rd anime TV series starting on October 6th. Now, Crunchyroll, as I mentioned, did simulcast the earlier seasons, which I imagine almost no one actually watched, but we haven't. I don't think we've heard yet if Crunchyroll will be simulcasting the 3rd season, but they probably will, since they tend to simulcast just about everything. So again, this is a show that very few people are going to watch, But I think Otaku would like to keep up to date with at least what's available, what's out there. So,
And there might be somebody who has small children that would want to.
yeah, I'm sure this would be a great way of introducing young children to Japanese language, to anime.
Maybe I'll tell Sarah about it too, because she's got a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Oh, really?
So.
Really?
A 3 and a 1, yeah. Yeah,
It's
Sarah.
been a while, yeah.
It's been a
Wow,
while.
okay.
She's married for a while too.
Oh,
so.
really? Wow, okay. Yeah.
Well, there are 10,000 Japanese fans were polled on which manga they'd like to see made into a live-action series. Gintama, no shock, was the winner.
We don't necessarily have to go through all of them.
Well, yeah, I just wanted
but okay, the first
top few.
Sure.
I like that Sword Art Online is because I really like
Okay.
that one too. Yeah,
Yeah, some of
Mobile
out
Suit.
of the list of the top 20 current or relatively contemporary as a non-major Shonen Jump shows, mostly non-major Shonen Jump shows, most of the ones that Japanese fans seem to prefer getting live-action adaptations of were actually relatively realistic ones.
Oh, really?
Because you would figure that you'd want to
Slice of
see,
life
yeah,
type?
you'd want to see largely the really fantastic ones. So you
Yeah.
can see all the action and the special effects.
Exactly.
Things like Sword Art Online, for
Exactly.
example, or Gundam,
That's right.
for example. Exactly. But a lot of them, like the second most popular, Yahari no Ore Seishun Love Gamachi Tekeiro, or My Teen Romantic Comedy, is just a high school romantic comedy. You know, no special effects required, no fantasy involved. I think like Clannad was the third most popular. Again, just high school kids. When you Kuroko no Basuke, the fourth most desired live action adaptation, is just high school boys basketball.
Well, it's a sports thing. It could be a sports thing too. So.
It could be. I'm a little bit surprised by how low the vote counts are for some of these. Out of 10,000 people, Gintama got the most collective votes, the most people chose Gintama, and it was only 342 people that picked Gintama.
But
So
you have to think
there's a
though,
lot of
there's
range
10,000 people, but 10,000
different
people, but
selection.
there's so much anime
Yes.
out there that, oh, well, I like this one, well, I like the other one, so, there's
Yeah.
probably a ton of ones and twos out there.
Yeah, indeed. Some surprises on here, like Gundam. Gundam came in pretty low. Where did it come in at 14th?
Yeah.
Yeah, considering how popular Gundam is.
With 131 votes, too.
I mean, only out of 10,000 people, only 131 of them wanted a live-action Gundam movie. It could be terrible, flashbacks to Gundam Savior, but there's also a good possibility here that we could create a good. Well, I don't know. That we probably could. Maybe that Japan could.
Yeah.
Different, but okay. Yeah, definitely. Some like Suzumiya Haruhi came in at 7th. You can imagine a couple years ago that would certainly be at the top of the list.
Yes.
But now it's declined a little bit. Same. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's 25, 30 years old now. One of the most popular manga of all time. But it came in 17th out of the titles that people would want a live action version of.
Yeah.
I could see JoJo being slightly difficult to adapt into a convincing live-action adaptation, but if it was done well, I can imagine that'd be really, really neat. So I'm quite surprised by the sort of titles and where they come in on relative to what Japanese people would want. And the one also that I want to discuss is One Piece. Not entirely surprising, it came in 6th place, a little lower than we might have anticipated, but I personally just cannot envision a good live-action One Piece movie. In my mind, I just can't see it. I can see lots of terrible ones.
So this is actually just for movies, not like for a whole series.
Well, live-action, any sort of live-action version.
Okay.
Presumably a feature film. But can
it
you
still
even imagine a live-action version of One Piece?
Well, I'm not a One Piece fan, so I have no opinion.
Oh, all right, okay. I'm so used to the characters, and the characters are so definitive. The characters have so much distinctive personality, And One Piece is a show that relies so much on face faults, on facial humor, bodily humor, that I just can't see it being conveyed convincingly in live action.
Yeah.
Like, real human people just don't emote that way. Real human people don't move that way.
Really?
And beyond the Mr. Fantastic Plastic Man
Okay.
sort, just the facial expressions alone, I just can't imagine how it could possibly work.
Unless it was a whole CGI thing.
It would
or
have to
kind
be,
of a
but then that would defeat the purpose of live action adaptation.
That's true.
See, and we have had CG One Piece movies before. I think there's been two of them.
Not the entire movie being CG, but just doing some special effects on the face.
Wouldn't that be horrifying?
Well, yeah.
Okay, yeah, wouldn't it be
But if the
just
One Piece fans
disturbing?
want it, then, let's give it to the One Piece fans.
I mean, to take real actors and then occasionally just modify their facial expressions so that their mouths suddenly become bigger. I mean, that would be just horrifying.
I was
really.
going to say, they do it in horror films, but...
For monsters, they do it. I mean, like for
yes.
Freddy Krueger, I can understand his face elongating. But, for regular humans, it's just disturbing. Creepy, indeed. But, yeah, once again, just to prove that the tastes and the inclinations and interests of Japanese fans a lot of times are still pretty far different from the tastes of American viewers.
Well, I mean, just look at the anime selection, and that'll tell the story right there. There's so many more of the slice of life type animes and the day in the life animes than there are of the fantastical type.
Which is definitely the opposite ratio that I think what most Americans would prefer.
Right. Like me, I'm like, oh, Gintama, oh, Sword Art Online, okay, yeah, Mobile Suit.
Yeah, out of things...
But I don't think like a regular person.
Yeah, personally, I would... like Tawara Majitsu no Index came in last. That's one of the ones that I would prefer to see in live action, because that's one that has a lot of fantastic visual aspect, a lot of elaborate action to it that would really be neat to see in live action with like elaborate special effects. But different cultural tastes, I guess.
That's it.
But it looks like Pony Canyon is trying to bring Japanese anime culture to America.
Well, that's really awesome because Japanese entertainment producer and distributor Pony Canyon, also known as PonyCon, has announced plans to self-publish anime and DVD, Blu-ray releases for the American market. The distributor was established in 1966. Ooh, that's a good year. And has produced anime including Shingeki no Kyojin, Free K-On!, and Shinsekai Yori. And
From the New World.
Okay. And PonyCon is presently promoting its upcoming Denkigai no Honyo-san and Yuki Yuno wa Ryushi de Aru television series. Sorry, it's been a while. Yeah. Both of which will simulcast on Crunchyroll beginning next month. And what were you saying about... Didn't they distribute...
Risky Safety, among other titles, indeed. So it would certainly be nice to see Risky Safety back in circulation. I mean, they do own the original rights, and they have the materials. So they could, if they wanted to, I suppose. There's been already a lot of discussion, a lot of anxiety about the possibility that Pony Canyon will directly and business-wise follow in the footsteps of Aniplex America, specifically releasing domestic releases at near Japanese prices. I'm not sure that I'm really not convinced that that's going to happen. Aniplex is a relatively new Japanese subsidiary company, and they do have very, very high-end, very, very in-demand popular titles. Pony Canyon has been around for much, much longer. Pony Canyon has worked with the American distribution industry for much, much longer. Pony Canyon really ought to, by all rights, have a much better understanding of the American consumer market. And Pony Canyon has a much bigger catalog of titles at its availability than Aniplex does. So Aniplex has been satisfied to largely distribute in America just as a supplement to its Japanese distribution. So that's why they sell titles at $75 a disc, because they don't really care how many of them they sell. You know, if they sell 100 extra copies in America, it's 100 copies they wouldn't have sold otherwise. Pony Canyon, I think, is probably, at least hopefully, going to aim for a slightly larger market share. That's just my gut instinct, but for my gut instinct to do that, they're going to have to price comparatively with the established R1 industry. Now, there is also some speculation that this will hurt American licensing, because, for example, Sentai Filmworks just recently finished releasing Shin Sekai Yori on American Blu-ray. Pony Canyon distributes Shingeki no Kyojin in Japan. Funimation is finishing up the release of that this week here in America. Will Pony Canyon sub-license titles like that in the future to Sentai or Funimation if they just distribute them themselves domestically?
Right.
We don't know yet. We don't know for certain if Pony Canyon is going to come into the domestic industry the way Toei tried to a number of years ago, which would be a combination of self-releasing and sub-licensing, or if they're going to strictly do an Aniplex route and try to distribute everything themselves. We don't know yet. On the positive side, we may see less lag time between American and Japanese release times.
That's nice.
If the distributors bring in them themselves, we may see a bigger variety of stuff come over here. Although with streaming,
Again,
it's not
nice.
really a big deal anymore. But remains to be seen. Traditionally, Japanese distributors coming into America have not really succeeded. Toei has tried it twice, in fact. They tried it once in the very early 80s, or it was the very late 70s, and it failed. They tried once again in the mid-2000s, the first decade. That failed. Bandai Visual tried and failed. A couple of the other ones, like Studio APP, tried and failed. Gamers tried and failed. So we'll see how Pony Canyon does.
We hope they do well. But
Yeah, hopefully.
track record.
They're not competition for us anymore, so right on, we don't mind. While Sentai, I mentioned, has just recently finished up releasing Shin Sekai Yori, they have now announced a new license. To, in my opinion, very little surprise, they have picked up the rights to the Muv-Luv alternative Total Eclipse television series from 2 years ago. This is a show that, as I mentioned, feels like an ADVision / Sentai type acquisition, so I'm really not surprised at all that this is one they picked up. Muv-Luv Alternative Total Eclipse is a post-apocalyptic mecha action anime based on a series of 6 light novels written by Yoshimune Koki, who is also the CEO of Ajesoft, which is the game development studio that published the Muv-Luv Alternative PC game in 2006, which is a sequel to the 2003 Muv-Luv PC game. So the anime TV series here, let's see, we go Muv-Luv, then Muv-Luv Alternative, then spin-off Muv-Luv Alternative light novels, and then anime based on those light novels.
Okay.
Apparently, the quality also sequentially declines from what I hear, which is why the Muv-Luv Total Eclipse TV series has been sort of a stepchild. You know, the mecha fans love it because it's mecha, but I think even they recognize it's not entirely that good. You know, the story takes a lot of suspension of disbelief.
And that's saying a lot for an anime.
The animation quality is uneven. Yeah, I won't call it bad. We'll just call it uneven. The narrative it takes quite a stretch. The tone shifts dramatically. You'll get intense, morbid, gruesome, bloody violence. And then there's also, in my opinion, a lot of overt racism in it. It's supposed to be there for character development. It still bothers me personally. There's a little bit of moe comedy in it. Yeah, it's a weird sort of mess of a show. But there are fans that dig it. So in January, Sentai Filmworks will begin releasing the 24-episode series on bilingual DVD and Blu-ray.
Well, okay.
And
Mar Vista acquires Heroes Legends of Battle Discs. Is it Frisbees?
I don't think so, but I'm not sure anyone actually knows yet.
Los Angeles-based Mar Vista Entertainment has acquired the international distribution rights to Asahi Productions' forthcoming shonen anime television series, Heroes Legends of Battle Discs. The long-delayed anime series based on Magic Box International's line of children's toys was originally announced for a winter 2013 premiere. Mar Vista will be promoting the series to potential broadcasters at the MIP Junior Industry Convention in Cannes, France.
Yeah.
In October.
So
next week.
Yeah, actually,
yeah, it's next week.
Coming up soon. So no one actually knows for certain what the discs are, because all that exists of this so far is a minute-and-a-half long pilot video that was released 3 years ago. So this is one of those actually Spanish-produced productions. Magic Box International was actually a Spanish toy company, and they decided they wanted an anime based on their toy line, so they commissioned Asahi to produce an anime. Seems like the funding has probably been slow in coming, so the production has been slow in coming. This, as far as I know, has never been a show primarily intended for Japanese broadcast. This has always been a show made in Japan for international release. We don't know yet if it will actually get international release. Mar Vista is licensing it as a international licensor, actually. They're not licensing it to distribute themselves. They're licensing it to take to MIPCOM Junior to sell to TV networks and home video distributors. To then hopefully they will then distribute it. So there's no telling if the public will ever actually see the show.
If it'll see the light of day.
Or even if the show will ever actually get completely made. But interesting, in a historical footnote at least, to keep up to date with this kind of production. Yeah. Well, I mentioned a few moments ago that Funimation has finished up releasing the initial Attack on Titan Shingeki no Kyojin television series this week.
I like that series.
Actually, we can talk about that. Actually, this week they released part 2 on a DVD Blu-ray combo, a limited edition DVD Blu-ray combo, and then a super exclusive collector's limited edition with extra physical bonus goods that's only available directly through Funimation.com this past week.
Okay. Do you know what's in there?
I haven't kept track because I don't like the show.
Oh, really?
So,
okay.
Yeah.
The Ghost in the Shell 25th Anniversary Edition Blu-ray manga. Oh, it's coming out from manga.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. Maybe. Sentai Filmworks this past week released the Kempfer television series, this time on bilingual Blu-ray. That was previously a subtitled-only DVD release. And then they License Rescue re-released the first season of K-On! On DVD only. Remember, the previous Bandai release was separate DVD and Blu-ray, but evidently right now at least Sentai does not have Blu-ray rights.
Okay. Looks like Viz has put out Pokemon Black and White Adventures in Unova. It's a DVD set.
And for the umpteenth time,
Oh, God.
Robotech gets re-released. This time Lionsgate this week has released the Robotech Classic Collection Volume 1. I don't know much about this. I stopped paying attention to all the various Robotech re-releases.
A long time ago.
Honestly, since I have not been full-time working in the anime industry, I haven't kept up on, or even actually heard of, the manga re-release of the Ghost in the Shell movie.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it anywhere. I haven't heard anything about this. It supposedly came out this week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it actually did. I don't know what's unique or special about it for 25th anniversary edition.
And if it's been remastered or something.
I have no idea whatsoever. I just know I saw it on our list that supposedly it hit stores this week.
Slap a sticker on
yeah,
25th anniversary.
the first manga anime release in a year, 2 years at least,
It's been a while.
probably. Yeah, they released Redline, didn't they? That was manga. I believe that was manga that released Redline. Was that 2 years ago now? Anyway, folks. Well, what did you like about Shingeki no Kyojin?
I just like the adventure type of anime, so
Okay.
it's kind of right up my alley, And I just like I mean, I'm watching it on Adult Swim on Cartoon Network, but so I'm only I got through the first season. I think it started the second season, but so I just like it. I do. I like the way the characters are developing. I like the whole intrigue of him doing stuff that other people can't do. I don't want to issue any spoilers here.
At this point, it's pretty well done.
Okay. But I mean, I think it's a cool concept, and I can't wait to see how that plays out. Are there any more than 2 seasons?
Not yet.
Not yet.
It is.
But it is going to be coming up. Okay, good.
I've gone over in detail my gripes about this show before, and I will admit that my gripes may be unfounded because I already made it 4 episodes in. Made it 4 episodes in before I decided I hate this.
Well,
and I stopped watching.
I mean, he can be kind of a whiner and stuff like that, but
that's part of what disturbs me.
But it's still exciting and stuff like that, and it's an interesting concept with the way they move through the buildings and the trees and stuff.
It is.
It's different.
The lines they use it is a neat idea. I am simultaneously disappointed and impressed with Wit Studio and Hoods for making the movements look so exciting, so smooth, when it's actually very, very limited animation. If you pay attention to it closely, it's really mostly moving backgrounds.
Yeah.
But it looks really neat, I will admit that. It does a great job
they put it together
of really
nicely.
fooling the eye to make it look like it's much more fluidly animated than it actually is. But a lot of things about the pacing in the early episodes really just annoyed the hell out of me.
It gets better.
I've heard that,
better,
so I've been meaning to eventually try and go back and sit through more of it.
Force yourself to just choke it down.
I am going to have to at some point. Things like, especially the pacing of character action, really, really frustrated me. I've mentioned before that things like, our men are dying, we need to go save them. Oh, okay, well, let's have a drink first. Or, let's stand on the rooftops. Oh, they're fighting out there at the edge of the wall, let's go. Eventually. Or, I understand you're trembling, you're so frightened, just relax. Let's have a lengthy, profound conversation here about how we should be active. Why don't you just be active then, instead of talking about being active? I understand, I understand the concept.
Don't look into it that way.
I understand the concept of the Titans being so horrifying that they literally freeze people in their tracks. They're so horrified that they just, like deer in headlights, are stung. But is that really supposed to happen to soldiers that have been training for 12 months to fight these things?
But if they've never seen them, then
what were you training for? Yeah. Shouldn't you train for that? It's been 100 years, right? You know by now how frightening they are, right?
Well, yeah, but if you've never seen one, it takes that experience to actually see one to either get through it or blow your brains out. So
it seemed a little bit heavily overplayed to me. Sorry for the little bit heavily. I stooped toward heavily. When I see my friend getting eaten, and I'm so stunned that it's going to eat me next, and I'm just going to sit here. I mean, we're in Trolls 2 territory here. Oh my God, they're eating him, and they're going to eat me next. That's a Trolls 2 reference. Yeah.
I didn't catch that reference.
Okay.
I didn't see Trolls 2.
Maybe for the better. But if I'm comparing Shingeki no Kyojin to Trolls 2, then I'm not exactly favorable to actually either. But I am aware of how tremendously popular it is, and maybe I'm just being too harsh on it. So I will admit that. Maybe I'm also being too harsh on the anime industry, because we're coming up on the end of a season now, a new season will start up. Literally speaking, next week, the first episode of Genki Gai no Honya-san is actually premiered online already. Since I'm watching the current season end, I was kind of having an impression that a lot of shows were much shorter this season, and that disturbed me. Then I actually looked carefully and realized it's not as bad as I thought, because two of the short show seasons this year were actually Noitamina series, and those have traditionally always been short. Particularly Psycho-Pass New Edit was only 11 episodes, and Zankoku no Terror was only 11 episodes. But both of those are Noitamina series, and they're usually only 10 or 11 anyway. So, okay. But Kuroshitsuji Book of Circus was only 10 episodes. Minarai Giva was only 10 episodes. Barakamon was only 11 episodes.
Wow. And
so,
that's the entire season.
The entire season.
Series?
So I was a little bit worried about this. I worry, hopefully unnecessarily, but I worry if this is a direction that the anime industry is going in. I think back to the 80s when 12-episode, 13-episode shows were really relatively uncommon. They were pretty rare back when I started watching Japanese anime. In the 90s, they started becoming more common when ATX and WoW started airing late-night anime. Because that's when we started getting one-kuru shows. But I recognize that anime has always been a commercial product. And it's always been about money, certainly. But I'm worried increasingly about studios being so concerned about money that they're compromising the integrity of storylines by cutting shows down to so few episodes. Instead of making 12, we can save $500,000 or $200,000 if we make it 10 episodes instead.
Sorry.
I'm concerned about shows becoming and seasons becoming so short that they don't feel complete, that they don't feel like they've actually told a convincing or fulfilling story anymore. On one hand, I appreciate short seasons. Like, it's easier to watch 10 episodes than it is to watch 12, unless you're binge watching them. Because that's just for 2 weeks, and a lot can happen in 2 weeks, as we both know. But I don't want to see a compromising storytelling for money, for cost savings. So that's been on my mind lately. That's the kind of thing that worries me. Hopefully it's just me.
No, it's a valid argument, because it's kind of like between a short story and a novel. Sometimes you don't feel as fulfilled reading a short story as you would reading an entire novel, where all the characters are fleshed out and there's the storyline and everything gets wrapped up in a nice, neat bow at the end. Whereas with a short story, I've read a lot of short stories where it just leaves you hanging, and it's just like, I want more. What's next?
Then again, that is what yaoi means. No story, no climax. Sorry.
I'm talking about...
geeky puns there. All right, geeky jokes. But that's why you're watching us. One of my dreams, the clean ones I can talk about, is when old school fans dump their collections. It happens very, very infrequently, but a handful of times in my life, there have been occasions when I've been fortunate enough to buy massive bulk collections from old school collectors that are not interested in anymore. There was one occasion when the collector had passed away, and I purchased his entire collection for very minimal cost. So it's a great way to pick up like vintage vintage collectibles and vintage anime merchandise, like, really cheap. I don't want to gloat too much, but this past week I found a similar collector on eBay who was obviously a very long-term collector who is now getting out of the hobby or needs money and is selling off his collection very, very cheap. So I was really, really excited to pick up a giant stack of 80s color anime books for $150 shipped on eBay. I'm slightly regrettable that in this like 20, 25 some books, there are only actually 2 or 3 that I don't already have. Most of it's duplicates, but I hoard. Many of you know that I kind of collect multiples of things that I like. When I'm getting vintage anime books for $5 a piece, I don't mind having 2 or 3 of them. If it's the cost of a Big Mac, sure, I'll take it. So.
And then you're not eating the Big Mac, so there you go.
And believe me, I shouldn't. But I was just really excited to pick up a massive stack of vintage anime books, books from Wingaria, Dirty Pair, Royal Space Force, Captain Harlock, Lupin. Yeah, lots of vintage 80s anime books for like $5, $6, on the high end $10 a book. So
wow,
really happy about that. It's the kind of thing that makes me giddy. Yeah. I don't know what makes you happy lately.
What makes me happy? Well, I went to Korea to see my little friend Jackie, who was here at Christmas time and did a podcast with me. I think that was the last time I did a podcast, so I'm quite embarrassed. But I went to see her, and it was really amazing. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I expected because I'm more of a Japan type person, and going to Korea, I was like, yeah, okay, no, I'm not here for Korea. I'm here for you. Blah blah blah.
Oh.
But it was actually really nice.
Well, since you've actually been now to Korea and Japan, how do they compare?
It's similar in that everybody is shorter and dark haired.
Really? Okay.
I didn't see, you be quiet over there. I didn't see any people with really strange hair like mine because I had the purple streak and everything. But different in the way everything was still really clean, which is awesome, very safe.
All right.
But the way they carry themselves is
really?
different.
Oh.
So they're less introverted than the Japanese seem to be, because you get on Japanese subway, there's silence. Yeah. Nobody's talking, they're all on their phones, or they're all just, pretending like they're asleep. And there were a lot of people that did that in Seoul as well, but there were more people that were chatting with each other and stuff like that. So it was nice, it was refreshing, but it was very interesting. It was very interesting.
I'm fascinated too, because I've been to Hong Kong, and I've been to Singapore, and I've been to Tokyo several times, but have not been to Korea, so I'm not familiar with the differences.
But they just don't seem to be as reserved.
Really? Oh, okay. I would imagine that would probably be the case. Yeah.
And they love my hair over in Korea as well. So.
That's neat. That's neat. This is our final podcast from the Animation headquarters.
I'm so sad.
I don't know. Any last words? Any last memories, recollections?
I'm gonna miss it. I mean, this was a big part of my life for a good 9 years.
Yes.
And almost 10 years. Oh.
Yeah,
actually, I've been associated with Animation for probably 11 or 12 years because I was a customer before I was an employee. And then even when I wasn't an employee anymore, I was still, come to do podcasts regularly with John until I got a real job. And I couldn't take off early on Fridays anymore. But it's the end of an era.
It is, and so much has happened. I look back at our history. I look back at photographs. I look back at archives of our employees, and I realize I don't even remember half of these folks. I can't even recognize a bunch of these people. does that mean I'm getting senile? That's terrible,
It's just
isn't
been
it?
a long time.
But it's
and
been a long
if they were
time,
kind of in and out,
we
maybe
went through
a year or two.
Yeah, we went through a
You've been
lot.
stuck with me for like 9-10 years, so
it has been a long time.
Because Darren sent around a thing on Facebook
Yes.
with a whole bunch of pictures and everything, and all the memories and everything. And I was in some of those pictures with Sarah as a customer when the warehouse sales. So yeah.
I don't know if I have singular animation memories. Certain things stand out because I have reflections on them. For example, when we licensed, crap. Now I'm embarrassing myself. I think it was when we licensed Goo that Chad and I went out and bought beer. And I still have the empty Sam Adams bottle. So nice company. Let's take a break and go back in the employee meeting room and have some beer. So it was like great work environment. So I do remember wonderful events like that. And I certainly got to meet many people. I got to do a lot of traveling. I got to meet a lot of you, viewers and listeners, during my time here. I'm certainly interested in your recollections of Animation, so please send those our way via the Animation Forum. And keep in mind that while Animation.com is no longer with us, Rent Anime is still here. So if you're interested in checking out any new anime that isn't available streaming or that you just simply prefer on disc, please patronize Rent Anime.
Absolutely. Yeah, get one of those DVD players or Blu-ray players that has the multiple discs. And you can just put a whole bunch of them in there.
Yep.
Play them forever.
I've mentioned that next weekend I will be at the local Necronomicon fantasy convention. Come on out and see me if you're in the neighborhood.
Is that in Orlando or in Tampa?
This one's in Clearwater this year.
Clearwater.
And I should also have a solo podcast next week. So tune in to see how I manage on my own. Thanks for watching.
I'll come and visit sometimes.